Well, good morning, and thanks for being with the Flickniks.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Nick and Nick.
Yes, that's right. And thank you for such a great Australian film.
Oh no! Horror Mum's gone off again! Gone off where? Off her head!
Is your oldest daughter really a lesbian, or is that just gossip?
So the impetus of this film comes from your life, and what was the challenges of telling a story so personal?
Well, look, Muriel's wedding was a personal story too, and that was actually a greater challenge because I just left that.
Yeah.
I didn't have the distance that I have now on my family. So this one was a little less difficult. It took me a long time to figure out how to tell the story of Shaz and the impact she had on our family. Yeah. I met her when I was 12 years old. Just as in the movie, it's all true. My mother had a nervous breakdown, and one morning we woke up and Mum was gone. We just like, where's breakfast? She was just not there. And we said to Dad, who was a local politician, a formidable figure, we finally got up the courage to ask where she'd gone, and he said, she's on holiday. That's the official story, because nobody votes for a bloke whose wife is crazy. And we figured out that she'd snapped. And then quickly, because we were a bunch of rat bags, my dad snapped. He was stuck with us, and we took full advantage of my mum not being home. We ordered pizza every night. I wore his suit one day. And he picked up a hitchhiker. He trusted her because she had a dog. And we got back from school, and there was this stranger sitting in our lounge room, rolling what I thought at the time was a cigarette, hunting knife sticking out of her leather boot. And she just looked around this mess, this house, and just pizza boxes everywhere. And she's a bit of a mess in here, isn't it? And she said it's about cleaning, and that was the beginning. That I thought was the beginning of the story, and then pretty much it unfolds as how it happened.
And Rebecca, what was it like doing such a different role to some of the things you've done previously?
Liberating.
Liberating transformation, was it?
Liberating transformation. Yeah. Well, not just because I could eat my way, to fatness, which I think with glee and with joyfully. I joyfully ate spaghetti carbonara.
You didn't have to say no to dessert.
No, I didn't have to say no to anything, and it was so physically it was liberating, but also liberating because it was such a different character from me or anyone I've ever played before, and I was able to literally disappear into this character, and I had gotten very comfortable in the last few years with Julie Rafter and Back to the Rafters, obviously, and other things that I'd done. I'd sort of felt a bit sort of secure and comfortable, and this was way out of my comfort zone. It was a character very close to me, not just because it's PJ's mother, but because I was playing my mother, because I understood this character probably, I'm sure, better than anyone except for him. And I wanted him to challenge me. I wanted to be taken, and I said, I'm a canvas. You can tell me what to do. I will do it. I will do whatever it takes.
Coral is an employee of Treb Blundell Jaws, a terrace shark show. Physically, Coral isn't equipped to part with her girlhood right now. Not saying never.
And with Liev, how did you make a Yank sound Aussie than Brian Brown?
Well, I can't do that. That was all Liev. Yeah. But I did talk to Liev, and I said, he knows that our accent is notoriously difficult to do because he's married to an Australian.
He knows the audience's reaction to bad Aussie accents.
And well, yes, he does know that. He said, look, but he said to me, I just don't want to ruin your movie. And I said, well, I don't want you to ruin my movie either. So if you don't think you can pull off this accent, please don't try. But he said, I think I can. He worked very, very hard. He worked with a dialogue coach.
He'd even say it on set to us. He'd come into makeup and he'd say, how does this sound? We'd all be in the makeup room, whatever, all of us, and he'd say, coral.
He had trouble with coral. Coral. He kept saying coral. And remember, he's always talking to the grip?
Yeah.
But he always got it.
Yes.
He kept going until sometimes I'd say, yeah, I think we got it. He said, no, let me check with the grip.
No, it's amazing. Grip, we got your okay on this? Yeah.
And the grip again.
Rebecca, what was it like working with your scenes with Deborah Mailman? She's quite eccentric.
She is hilarious. Apart from being one of the loveliest people on the planet, she is incredibly funny. And so the scenes in the mental institution with her and Tony and myself, we just laughed because they're funny scenes.
It's funny, Deb would say, how mad am I? And I would say, well, Shaz is mad, but you're madder.
Yeah.
So
I think she loved it because she had the freedom to just go, be
and especially the boomerang scene.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Well, considering she was actually shooting or preparing for the Sapphires at the same time as she was doing Mentor, which is, it's funny, but it's a dramatic role compared to this. So it shows her range.
Her astonishing range.
Yeah.
She's a brilliant actress.
She is.
There's two people that have been telling Aussie stories, home stories, your Indigenous stories for quite some time. Do you think that there's any particular part of Australian society that often doesn't get its stories told as often as it should, or aspects of it?
Most all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there are so many stories. Look, I think we have the period dramas pretty well covered, but I think contemporary Australian stories, whether they be comedy or drama, are at a premium. I think Australians love to see themselves on screen portrayed honestly, with humour, and when an Australian film comes out and it's good, it's usually embraced with such enthusiasm and pride by the Australian audience that gives me a lot of hope, because I'm devoted to having a strong Australian film industry because I owe my career to it. We both do. Toni Collette wouldn't be in the USA right now as one of the most sought-after actors in that country if it hadn't been for Muriel's Wedding. We both know that. So I think Australian films are extremely important, and they're more important than even we think they are. It's difficult because we are considered, strangely enough, outside our shores, a foreign country. It's true. They go, I don't think there's an international audience for this one. And when you're asking Americans for money, they want to know, well, what is it about your Australian film that's going to appeal to the USA? And you say, well, it's an Australian film. They usually want an American actor in it somewhere. They usually want it to be international, or in some way that means it's less Australian.
Yeah. Well, anyone ever thought to tell them that we're just awesome and actually you should just watch our cinema because we're
well, they steal from us all the time.
Well, they do, absolutely.
they constantly steal from us. I mean, without Dark City, you wouldn't have The Matrix.
But it's hard to not only absolutely kind of stealing some of our stories and taking it, making it something more. But it's difficult to actually play the game, go to the cinema and watch an American film that doesn't have an Australian lead.
Yeah, or an Australian, if not Australian in the cast, an Australian lighting it, an Australian somewhere directing it, costume design. You take the Australians away from Hollywood, and
what are you left
with?
So on that, I suppose to wrap up is, what do you think the international prospects of this film are?
PJ's always said right from the outset, I am making this film for Australians, and if the Americans like it, that's a bonus. But at the end of the day, it's about Australian film for an Australian audience.
Yeah, which that's how I made Muriel's Wedding.
And look at the success of that.
And that actually travelled.
Who is this Shaz woman? G'day. We're back. Oh, we don't like the smell of you.
Thanks for this real joy, this gift that is, that is meant.
That's lovely. Bless you.
Australia loves it as much as we do.
Thanks, guys.
So do we. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you.